Hello. Tonight's story is about what was a day like in ancient Egypt. If this kind of storytelling helps you relax and fall asleep peacefully, please don't hesitate to like the video and subscribe to my channel. Also, let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is for you now. If you are ready, turn off the lights and create a calm environment for yourself. Accompanied by the crackling sound of a fireplace below, we begin this immersive story. In the quiet stillness earlier than the crack of dawn touches the outside of the Nile, the historical Egyptian nation-state remains enveloped in the gentle, predictable darkness of early morning. The solar, still hidden under the Japanese horizon, has yet to warm the low mud brick walls of the village houses that have been developed in a simple, conventional trend, utilizing substances that had converted little for centuries. These constructions, most often consisting of one or two rooms, are arranged in a loosely geared-up pattern, forming clusters close the floodplains and irrigation canals. The houses have been made chiefly of sun-dried mud bricks, with flat roofs, and minimal decoration, designed extra for utility than for grandeur. Their interiors are dim, cool and sparse, characterized by means of worn pottery vessels, red mats, low stools, and low baskets woven from palm fibers. The villagers start to stir slowly, without a feel of urgency, because the sky progressively lightens to a pale grey blue. The rhythm of waking is dictated now not by alarms or schedules, however by using the subtle changes in normal, gentle, and the quiet movements of animals. Roosters don't crow dramatically, however instead emit intermittent sounds, mixing into the delicate rustling of reeds and the faraway lap of water towards slender banks. In such a homes, a center-aged man, neither wealthy nor negative, opens his eyes. His identity will not be recorded in historical past, and neither are his goals. He belongs to a protracted lineage of agricultural workers who've spent their days tending fields that obtain the annual floodwaters of the Nile. His existence, just like the lives of his ancestors, follows a familiar events. He stretches slowly, then sits upright on a mat of woven rushes that has served as his mattress for a long time. His spouse is already unsleeping. Though she has no longer made any noise, her actions are quiet, measured, and recurring. She lifts a clay vessel containing barley gruel that had been ready the night before and locations it near the small fire pit. The place embers still glow faintly under the ash. The fireplace can be rekindled, no longer dramatically, however, progressively, with dried twigs and collected dung that was gathered and shaped into gas cakes days earlier. There's no rush, as the day forward is predicted to unfold in its common, gradual fashion. The man washes his arms and face using a shallow basin of water drawn from a neighborhood storage jar, which was once filled at the communal good the earlier evening. The water is cool but no longer unpleasant. He does now not shiver. He dries his palms on a coarse linen fabric, frayed on the edges but still serviceable. The sun, now just commencing to crest the horizon, casts a muted golden hue over the panorama. The river glimmers gently, though no person stares at it for lengthy. Its presence is steady, dependable, and not especially awe-inspiring to those that are living with it on a daily basis. The person takes a small component of bread, which is dense and tough in texture, made from immer wheat flour with stone instruments. It often includes grit from the grinding system, which slowly wears down the enamel of those who devour it for the duration of their lives. He chews slowly, deliberately, his ideas quiet. This bread just isn't recent, however, it's suitable for eating. A small clay cup of beer, extra like a thick, fermented porridge, then a drink, within the trendy feel, accompanies the meal. It's warm and mildly sour, a staple of the weight loss plan for workers and artisans alike. Outside, the sunshine continues to increase gently across the sky, casting long, indistinct shadows on the packed earth pathways that join the properties. Kids transfer sleepily, their movements unhurried. There is no formal school to attend, no chariot to capture. Their days will begin as their dad and mum did, by means of commentary and imitation. They aid with easy chores comparable to feeding goats, gathering eggs from reed baskets, or gathering reeds for weaving. The percent stays gradual, nobody hurries. Haste is not a valued trait. As the solar lifts bigger, just a few individuals begin to walk toward the fields, the place they'll check out the levees, the irrigation channels, and the newly sprouting barley crops. The crops are only a few inches tall, inexperienced and unremarkable, arranged in neat, methodical rows. The man joins them, not as a supervisor or a chief, however, as a participant in the shared labor of planting, watering, and weeding. His device is an easy wooden hoe, worn soft by means of years of use, and his movements are repetitive, rhythmic, and effective. Nobody speaks much, and after they do, their voices are quiet, their topics mundane. They speak of the climate, which has been consistent. They point out the harvest from 2 years ago, which was normal. They recollect a neighbor who lately lost an ox to ancient age. The dialogue, like the labor, is steady and predictable. In the meantime, within the historical past, the animals begin to awaken extra. Donkeys bray softly. A cow lows within the distance. Birds flutter among the reeds, looking for bugs. A number of fishermen go with the flow slowly alongside the river in papyrus boats, casting nets product of linen thread, weighted with clay beads. Their success is discreet, however appropriate. They don't anticipate abundance, nor are they troubled by way of scarcity. Some fish will likely be eaten recent, others salted and dried for later consumption. The salting is done with natron, a naturally happening compound, and the drying takes location on picket racks near the riverbank. These hobbies, to unfold at a slow, deliberate percent, under the watchful eye of elders who screen for changes in wind, moisture, and bug activity. Through mid-morning, the air starts evolved to heat, no longer instantly, however regularly. Predictably, the man removes his linen headcloth and wipes his brow, though the heat is just not but oppressive. In summer season, it would end up uncomfortable via midday, but this is the planting season, when the solar's intensity is tempered via moderate breezes from the north. The breeze smells faintly of silt and marsh vegetation. No one comments on it. Everyone is used to it. The day's growth is measured, not through clocks or bells, however by means of the motion of the sun and the length of shadows. There's no targeted have got to mark time precisely. The labor continues in short intervals. Periods of labor are followed through transient intervals of relaxation, generally within the color of palm bushes or beside irrigation ditches lined with flat stones. These ditches, maintained communally, are principal for channeling the Nile's floodwaters. Their preservation is regular, involving small-scale digging, patching, and the redirection of water by means of easy wooden gates. The gates are adjusted, utilizing short levers and pegs, situated on decisions made days previous via village elders or local scribes. The system is events, predictable, and mildly bureaucratic. A wood tally board, scratched with lines and symbols, is used to track whose plots have bought water. These tallies are reviewed at typical intervals and adjusted founded on availability, want, and the consensus of those present. Lunch is a quiet affair. A thin porridge of lentils or beans, perhaps supplemented by using a couple of onions or leeks, is served communally in large ceramic bowls. Each and every individual uses their fingers or a shard of damaged pottery to scoop small portions. There is little dialogue. The food is neither hot nor bloodless, neither particularly bland nor particularly flavorful. It's useful, much like the architecture and instruments of the village itself. After eating, some members lie in the color, resting on mats or reclining in opposition to the cool partitions of mud brick constructions. Others continue their duties, though with much less depth than before. Kids play neighborhood, imitating grown-up behaviors through small games. They carve miniature boats from timber, mold clay collectible figurines, and throw sticks at objectives. Their laughter is soft and intermittent. It fades swiftly into the warm air. The daily lifetime of historical Egypt continues in its acquainted, quiet rhythm, without foremost interruptions or surprises, and so the day unfolds, with the early hours serving as a peaceful prelude to the long, gradual procession of pursuits, labor, communal meals, and environmental commentary. The solar rises regularly, and life responds in equal measure. Nothing pressing occurs, and nothing dramatic is expected. It is a morning like many others, repeated across generations, generally unchanged, slowly passing just like the river itself, and hurried, accountable, and deeply normal. Because the morning offers technique to noon, the village alongside the Nile becomes bathed in a warmer, fuller, mild. The solar, now ascending to its very best point in the sky, casts shorter, denser shadows beneath the palms and towards the tender, clay-coated walls of the properties. The percent of lifestyles, already gradual, grows even slower. The heat isn't yet oppressive. However, it encourages stillness. The villagers, mindful of the sun's strength, modify their positions and activities to accommodate it. Nothing main is rushed. The fields stay tended, but with much less bodily exertion. Weeding is now preferred to digging. Fetching water becomes less conventional. The emphasis shifts gently from muscular labor to quieter types of work. At the fringe of the village, where the cluster of houses gives technique to a small open house, shaded via acacia bushes, a easy wooden structure stands. It is modest in size and design, developed with the equal solar-dried bricks used in houses. However, its function is different. That is the scribal station, a position no longer of devout significance or political vigor, however of activities, administration. It's right here that the mundane but significant bureaucratic services of daily village lifestyles are carried out. Underneath a low awning of woven reeds, supported by using 4 upright beams, sits a solitary scribe. His linen gown is slightly cleaner than those of the disciplined workers. He holds a thin wooden palette in one hand and a reed brush within the different. Earlier than him, resting on a flat stone surface, lies a piece of papyrus. The scribe, possibly informed from adolescence in the arts of writing, calculation, and report maintaining, starts his noon duties. He is not a determiner of authority in the natural field, but his work ensures that grain is tallied, irrigation is scheduled, and taxes are assessed properly. His tasks are repetitive, formulaic, and deeply unremarkable. He writes with practiced slowness, forming symbols with cautious deliberation. Each entry records something simple: a reputation, a plot number, the quantity of barley harvested, the size of canal maintained, or the quantity of oxen lent to a neighbor. The numbers aren't dramatic. They do not fluctuate wildly. He makes no commentary on them. He with no trouble files. Villagers technique him one after the other, every carrying a small pouch, bundle, or token. One brings a measure of flax, already spun into thread. Yet another presents a sack of onions, tied neatly with palm cord. These are choices in type varieties of tax, tribute, or a point relying on the connection between the peasant and the land. The scribe receives each and every supplying with minimal expression, nods gently, and reaches for his palette once again. He makes notations utilizing black or pink ink colors prepared by grinding ochre and mixing it with water and gum. The papyrus is somewhat curled on the edges. The ink dries slowly. A person from a neighboring farm techniques to report a damaged canal gate. His tone is tender. The scribe listens without noticeable difficulty. He adds a short notation within the margin of a thin sheet of scrap papyrus. He'll document it to the overseer during the following inspection. That will arise in these days, or it should occur the following day. It depends upon the overseer's wellness and the provision of his donkey. Nothing is urgent. No answer is demanded. Loco, under a second awning, a clay pill rests on a low bench. On it are organized a number of small objects: stone weights, bone tally markers, and a short abacus made out of beads threaded on skinny reeds. These are used now not for educating, however for calculation, chiefly for grain storage estimates and tax assessments. The scribe occasionally shifts his gaze toward them, checking figures or reviewing conversions between dry and liquid measures. He speaks no words aloud. The one sounds are the tender brushing of reed towards papyrus and the far-off movement of sandals across packed earth. In the meantime, the villagers who've completed their errands rest under shaded eaves or retreat indoors. The properties, although modest, furnish ample refuge from the sun's growing depth. The interiors remain dim and funky. Woven red blinds hang in doorways, partially defensive the light and allowing a smooth breeze to flow into. Females sit down on low stools, grinding grain with basalt querns. The grinding will not be achieved rapidly. It takes time. The motion is gradual and round, accompanied by the low, rhythmic sound of stone towards stone. The bottom flour can be used later for baking, although the baking itself won't arise except the temperature declines. A few youngsters accumulate around a shallow basin filled with water, splashing without exuberance. Their laughter is hushed. They are watched through older siblings or grandmothers, who fan themselves with bundled papyrus fronds. Now and again, a dog ambles by means of, then lies down in a shaded nook. A cat climbs onto a low roof, looking for warmness. Nothing dramatic. Occurs dot at the fringe of the fields. A pair of men speak about a suspected trade within the water level. They think the canal is leaking rather close its southern bend. They don't panic. They don't shout. They mark the location with a stone, then resume their other tasks. One trims a hedge of reeds with a bronze blade, whilst the opposite assessments for signs of insect harm on a row of sycamore saplings. Both have carried out these duties before. Normally, they participate in them once more now, without novelty, without infection. Back, within the scribal station, a younger boy arrives carrying a folded piece of linen. He palms it to the scribe, who unfolds it cautiously. Within is through an additional scribe farther down the Nile. It entails names and numbers. Its small print shipments of fish, dates for tax assortment, and the rotation agenda for floodgate monitoring. The boy waits whilst the scribe reads. When the scribe is finished, he folds the linen again and arms it again. The boy leaves. The scribe documents the contents of the record on a brand new sheet of papyrus, carefully copying every symbol. The process takes time. He's not disturbed by using this. Accuracy, now not pace, is his trouble. In other places in the village, a priest from the regional temple walks slowly down the path. His white linen robe is good pressed, his shaved head included with a thin fabric. He includes with him a scroll, tied with a reed cord. He stops in brief at the scribal station, changing just a few quiet phrases with the scribe. He fingers over the scroll, which small print a request for supplies to be dropped at the temple storehouse at pursuit's topic. The temple's granaries have got to be stocked prematurely of an upcoming pageant. The scroll shall be read, transcribed, and archived. The temple's wishes usually are not extravagant. They require oil, grain, incense, and simple linen. These substances are constantly trendy and at all times requested with courtesy. The priest departs without lingering. He walks with calm purpose towards the small columned temple, close the northern edge of the village. It isn't a gigantic temple, nor a grand one. Its columns are simple, painted in light colors, and its carvings are modest. It does now not appeal to many viewers, external of ritual days. In these days, the courtyard is practically empty, shop for one or two caretakers sweeping the ground with bundles of palm sticks. The priest enters slowly, bowing moderately. He walks by way of the vestibule and into the interior chamber, where he locations a small providing of lotus petals and oil upon a stone altar. He says nothing. The delivering shouldn't be accompanied via tune, dance, or spectacle. It is movements. The gods have to be acknowledged. However, they do not demand so much. By way of this time, the sun is directly overhead. The heat has reached its quiet height. The village settles additional into stillness. Tools are set aside. Voices grow fewer. Even the animals become quieter. A colossal white heron stands immobile in the reeds. A line of ants marches across a flat stone near the scribe's bench. The papyrus scrolls rustle faintly within the breeze, though none are blown away. Everything seems to wait, and in this gradual, timeless rhythm, the midday hours pass. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is hurried. The bureaucratic responsibilities are fulfilled with endurance. The temple receives its choices. The water continues to glide. The village continues to relaxation. The scribe's brush strikes throughout the papyrus with unchanging regularity, simply as the lives of those around him transferred across the hours of the day, consistent, uneventful, and enduring. The solar, now gently descending from its midday peak, casts elongated shadows yet again across the landscape. The air remains warm, although it starts afterwhelmed to melt relatively with the steady passage of time. Within the village, the men and women emerged step by step from their durations of relaxation. Their return to undertaking is just not marked with the aid of any unexpected event or sharp signal, but by using a series of unstated cues: the slant of light in opposition to the doorway, the sophisticated shift in wind, the quiet resumption of footsteps along the dusty paths. No one publicizes the change. It with ease occurs, because it perpetually does, without novelty or fuss. In a single modest household near the canal, a lady resumes the training of bread dough. The flour previous by means of hand on a basalt saddle, quern, has been mixed with water and a small part of ancient dough retained from prior days. This process of leavening is sluggish and imprecise, reliant on ambient yeast. The dough is now shaped into dense, circular loaves and placed gently into clay molds. These are then transferred right into a small, beehive-formed oven comprised of mud brick. The oven has been preheated, utilizing dried dung and timber, collected prior within the week. The baking process just isn't carefully timed, but rather guided by means of scent, contact, and expertise. The scent of baking bread starts to float by means of the narrow alleyways of the village, though no person comments on it. It is a original odor, neither satisfactory nor unpleasant, just familiar. Somewhere else within the equal family, a younger woman is assigned the project of preparing veggies. She peels garlic and slices leeks with a flint knife, whose part is worn but still realistic. She airs them into a rough ceramic bowl, alongside chopped radishes and inexperienced lentils. These ingredients will be simmered slowly over a small hearth in an open pot. The woman does now not rush. She works quietly, on occasion pausing to brush flies away with a palm frond. A clay jar of oil is opened with care, and a small quantity is poured over the greens. The jar is then closed again, sealed with a flattened lump of clay. Nothing is wasted. Everything is preserved. In the adjacent courtyard, a boy scrubs a low bench, making use of sand and water. The bench, carved from a single piece of wood, has amassed dust from the morning breeze. The cleansing just isn't urgent, but it is anticipated. He works slowly, making use of a material woven from linen scraps. When finished, he stands the bench within the sun to dry. In the meantime, his father returns from the discipline, his feet coated in exceptional silt. He washes them using a small bowl of water set near the doorway. The water is later poured onto a patch of withered herbs growing in the nook of the courtyard. Nothing is discarded without idea. The hobbies is measured, cautious, and deliberate. In a shaded alcove, an elder of the loved ones mends a fishing web. The web is manufactured from tightly spun flax fibers, dyed a stupid brown to combo with the murky waters of the river. One of the crucial knots have loosened. He ties them again, one by one, using small loops and practiced fingers. The restore takes a long time, however there is no motive to rush. The next fishing trip is not going to occur except dawn, and the web have got to be capable, even if it isn't best. Near him lies a basket containing worn floats made from cork and weighted stones wrapped in twine. He examines each and every one in flip, changing only those that have cracked or break up. The venture continues without interruption. At the southern fringe of the village, a gaggle of guys gathers to obtain a supply. A narrow skiff, common from papyrus bundles, glides silently into the inlet. It is pushed ahead by using a single man utilizing a pole. The skiff carries jars of beer, some sealed with wax, and others left open for instant consumption. There are also baskets of dried fish, preserved with salt and wrapped in woven red coverings. The alternate is quiet, familiar, and ruled through prior contract. No money changes fingers. Goods are bartered based on want, repute, and usual price. A man gives a jug of beer in alternate for a size of linen fabric. A further receives 2 baskets of fish in return for a worn bronze blade. There is not any argument, no negotiation. The approach is gradual and amicable. Once unloaded, the skiff is guided back into the important current of the river. The poleman leans gently into his strokes, propelling the craft with tender, even effort. He'll continue alongside the banks, stopping at other villages as wanted. He includes no manifest, no list of locations. His route is guided with the aid of memory, way of life, and the gradual depletion of his cargo. His passage leaves no obvious trace upon the water, handist a faint ripple that vanishes within seconds. Alongside the riverbank, extra items transfer slowly by way of the community of canals. A gaggle of donkeys, encumbered with baskets of grain, makes its approach toward a granary located simply beyond the palm groves. The animals stroll in a single file, led by means of a man who incorporates a long stick. He does not strike them. He makes use of the stick only to advise their path, tapping flippantly on the bottom or pointing ahead. The hampers are heavy, but balanced. The grain inside of has been measured by means of quantity, now not weight, and recorded earlier by means of the village scribe. Upon arrival on the granary, the grain is inspected, then poured into gigantic ceramic jars lined with straw. Each and every jar is sealed with a flat lid, labeled with a logo, and saved in orderly rows alongside the interior wall. The granary keeper makes a mark on a tablet, utilizing a blunt reed stylus. He does now not communicate. The process is predictable. Back within the village middle, a potter examines on the progress of his modern batch. The pottery wheel, operated by means of foot and hand, remains idle for now. The freshly shaped vessels, still drying, are organized in a one-half circle beneath a cover of woven rushes. They aren't yet able for firing. Their surfaces are inspected for cracks. Any incorrect portions will be transformed. The kill will be lit later within the week. Depending on the climate and the availability of fuel, the potter kneels to tender the rim of a water jug, moistening it with a moist fabric. The work is repetitive, however now not disagreeable. He hums softly, barely audible, more out of dependency than entertainment. That as the afternoon wanes, a group of ladies gathers at a small good near the eastern fringe of the village. The good is shallow, lined with rough stone. A wood body supports a rope and clay bucket. Every lady waits her turn, drawing water with a consistent rhythm. They don't rush. They communicate sparingly, providing temporary comments about the temperature, the state of their gardens, and the quantity of mosquitoes. The drawn water is poured into jars, balanced on their hips or carried on their heads with the help of coiled cloth pads. The journey home is unhurried. By using now, the shadows have grown lengthy as soon as again, stretching across the village paths like acquainted companions. The breeze has lower back, faintly stirring the reeds. Kids, having completed their minor tasks, begin to gather in small agencies. They play quiet games utilizing stones, bones, and carved picket tokens. One team traces up pebbles in a row. A further attempt to stability sticks on their fingers. There's little shouting, no celebration. The games are calm, reflective of their environment. In a single household, a girl starts a feveld to spin flax into thread, making use of a simple spindle. She turns it slowly, methodically, twisting the fibers between her fingers. A basket at her toes holds more all-set flax, soaked and softened. The spinning continues for an hour or more, depending on the quantity wanted. The thread will be used to repair clothes, make nets, or weave fabric on an easy loom. Regional. Her daughter starts to sweep her hair, utilizing a wooden comb with uneven teeth. The movement is sluggish, rhythmic, and cautious. The afternoon drifts onward, marked not with the aid of bells or clocks, however, by way of the constant alternate in mild, the ebb in warmth, and the completion of small, imperative duties. The items have moved. The meals is just about equipped. The nets are mended. The pots are drying. Nothing extraordinary has occurred. Nothing surprising has happened, and yet the day continues, quietly progressing by way of its phases with the same calm decision that has ruled it for centuries. Soon, the night will begin to settle. The sounds of cooking fires, muted conversation, and far-off animals will change. The undertaking of the afternoon, but for now, the village of historical Egypt stays suspended on this gradual heat interval between day and dusk, a time now not of reflection or closure, but of endured activities, uninterrupted via urgency, unmarked via event. As the day continues its consistent descent into the softness of night, the village, as soon as again starts a feveld to shift. The daylight, which had grown strong and golden in the course of the afternoon, now starts to fade gently into a faded amber hue, casting long softened shadows over the fields, the mud brick residences, and the quiet river. The air cools reasonably, although the warmness of the day lingers faintly in the partitions and stones. The transitions of the day are neither unexpected nor dramatic. They unfold regularly, as they have got continuously carried out, without commentary or ceremony. Inside the homes of the village, small fires are tended as soon as once more, their flames low and controlled. These are usually not fires of social gathering or spectacle, but of function. Around them, meals are ready in silence or with hushed, brief exchanges. The night meal is inconspicuous, drawn from the components gathered or all set prior in the day. There is no targeted feast, no wonderful dish. The food is traditional, sustaining, and ample. In a single household, a pot of lentils, now totally cooked, is removed from the hearth and set cautiously on a flat stone. The smell is moderate, earthy, and acquainted. A bowl of bread, baked prior that afternoon, is placed nearby. The loaves are hard on the outside and relatively chewy inside. A dish of garlic, mashed with oil and a pinch of salt, is passed between household contributors. A small quantity is smeared on the bread with a wooden spoon. There is not any desk, simplest a low mat, on which every person sits. The mother and father eat quietly. The children eat slowly. Every now and then, a child asks a question, answered with a short nod or a delicate response. The atmosphere is subdued, not from sorrow or fatigue, but from the recurring calmness of routine. In one other home, a bowl of cooked barley is shared between 3 adults. The barley has been flavored with leeks and a small amount of fish, preserved in salt and softened in water. A clay cup of diluted beer is passed between them. The beer is thick and fairly bitter, constituted of partially fermented grain. It is not consumed for pleasure, however, as part of the meal, supplying hydration and sustenance. No one speaks of the style. It's because it has perpetually been external. The villagers start to collect up their tools, folding cloths, storing vessels, and overlaying baskets with lids made from woven reeds. A man checks the door of his grain retailer, adjusting a rope that binds it closed. A girl folds the remainder dough from the afternoon into a small bowl, covers it with the material, and occasions it within the corner to ferment in a single day. The embers in the cooking fireplace are included with ash, now not extinguished entirely however, banked to hold the warmness for the morning. The routine is recurring. Each and every action is a repetition of the one earlier than it performed, with the same cautious attention, the identical quiet deliberation. Children, now completed with their easy video games, are called indoors. Some yawn, others disregarding the dust from their toes. A number of resist in brief, then comply. The rhythms of obedience are slow and predictable. There is no scolding, no hurry. Inside moments, the alleys between houses develop quieter. The dirt settles. The breeze moves gently via the palm bushes. A number of houses light small oil lamps. These lamps, constructed from clay, burn with a faint orange flame fueled by way of castor or sesame oil. The wicks, common from linen scraps, burn slowly. The sunshine isn't brilliant, and it does not attain a long way, but it is adequate. The lamps are positioned in corners or on ledges, casting stupid shadows on the mud brick walls. The interiors end up softly illuminated, now not with brilliance, however with a stupid and consistent glow dot. In the house of a regional elder, a slow conversation starts sevelled between 2 older men. They speak about the status of a neighbor's ox, which had grown lame weeks in the past. They keep in mind a flood from years earlier that damaged the canal wall. One mentions the priest who visited that afternoon. The other nods. They speak without pleasure, and their words are spaced out through long silences. They sip their beer in between, their backs resting in opposition to the soft wall of the courtyard. A regional cat curls right into a circle and starts avelled to sleep. The men converse just a little longer, then discontinue. Neither declares the end of the dialogue. On the village temple, a caretaker sweeps the stone ground with a fan-formed broom, made from palm stalks. His actions are slow and common. He pauses in most cases to relaxation. He is not younger, and there is no time limit. After the sweeping is completed, he contains a small bowl of incense to the inside chamber and locations it on a ledge. The incense is lit with a coal carried from a family fireplace. The scent rises, subtle and woody. The smoke spirals upward, barely seen in the fading gentle. A small statue of a falcon-headed god is bathed in the dim glow of a single oil lamp. There are not any prayers spoken aloud. The gesture of offering is silent and ceremonial. The god, unmoving, continues to acquire the same delivering every night, just as he has for generations. External, the fields develop darker. The barley and flax plants sway gently. The irrigation canals mirrored the last mild of the sun, then turned to stupid grey. Frogs to stir. Their sounds will not be loud, however regular. The donkeys are tied near the properties. The goats settle. Birds seek bigger branches. The river strikes quietly, neither rising nor falling. It conveniently flows, as it consistently does. One fisherman, returning late, ties his boat to a low stake and steps onto the shore. His FTR, moist, he contains a small basket of fish, sufficient for 2 ingredients. He walks slowly toward his dwelling. No person greets him. However, the door is open. Within, a small meal has been kept warm through the banked fireplace. He sets down his basket and eats without talking. The quiet of the evening has settled, and he does not desire to disturb it. Within the larger homes, mats are rolled out for sleep. Within the smaller ones, the identical mats used for sitting are reused for mendacity, down. Pillows are easy headrests, fabricated from carved wooden. They raise the head, however, present no softness. Youngsters lie down first, adopted by way of their father and mother. The eldest stay seated a while longer, watching the final traces of nightfall fade into nighttime. Ultimately, they lie down too. The oil lamps are extinguished, one by one. Some are blown out, others left to fade naturally. The homes grow darker. The village grows stiller. There's no sudden second of quiet most effective. The gradual softening of sound. The gradual dimming of light. The gradual folding of one day into the subsequent. The night does no longer start with ceremony. It starts affavelled with ease, as all nights do, with stillness, with silence, and with the soft exhalation of breath. And in the darkness, the humans of the village close their eyes, no longer all of a sudden, however slowly, gradually, as the burden of the day recedes, and sleep starts to arrive, softly, gently, without demand. As full darkness settles gently over the Nile Valley, the village turns into almost entirely quiet. The smooth glow of the solar, which had regularly pale in the course of the evening, has now disappeared, absolutely past the horizon, leaving, in the back of best, the soft shine of a night sky stuffed with numerous stars. There is not any artificial gentle, no lamps burning beyond the few that are stored low in temples or watchposts. The darkness shouldn't be feared. It is expected. It is familiar. It has been arriving every night time within the same quiet manner, for enormous quantities of years. Inside the properties, the persons lie on mats woven from reeds or coarse linen, their bodies arranged in cozy, ordinary positions. Some lie on their backs, others curl relatively on their aspects. The air has cooled, although not an excessive amount of bumming in the summertime months. A light breeze slips through the reed-blind doorways and clay shutters. In the wintry weather, additional linen coverings are drawn over the body, although these are seldom thick. Most households possess only a few such cloths, folded and stored for the duration of the hotter months, then brought out when the air turns cold. The texture is hard. The smell is faintly musty, but now not unpleasant. Because the village sleeps, the sounds of night emerge slowly and subtly. They are certainly not unexpected. Frogs there quiet, croaking near the riverbank. Crickets chirp in the distance, their rhythm even and constant. From time to time, the faint hoot of an owl drifts by way of the air, although few take discover. Puppies shift in their sleep, goats murmur softly. A donkey sighs and settles additional into straw. Nobody rises to examine these sounds. They are all recognized. They are all expected. Within the middle of the village, a single watchman walks a quiet circuit. He isn't a soldier, now not a protect within the modern-day feel. However, alternatively, a exact man of center years. Given the venture by means of rotation, he carries employees of acacia wood and wears a mild gown. He does now not expect disturbance. He does no longer call out. He walks the familiar paths between homes, across the small communal plaza, and previous the granary entrance. His footsteps are delicate. Every now and then, he pauses to listen, but nothing distinctive grants itself. He continues his circuit, running without urgency, stopping in many instances to sit on a low wall. His obligations will final until just before dawn, when he'll return, dwelling and sleep for a few hours before tending his small garden or inspecting his irrigation line. Farther away, along the canal, one other man stirs relatively in his sleep. He is a fisherman, dozing aboard a slim wood boat moored within the reeds. The water laps softly in opposition to the hull. The boat rocks gently, and the fisherman shifts without waking completely. Above him, the stars reflect dimly on the river's surface. Now and again, a fish breaks the water with a quiet splash. The noise is transient and fading. A reed rustles as a bird shifts on its perch. Stillness returns right away. In the larger houses, elders dream beneath simple canopies strung between wooden poles. These canopies aren't ornamental, however, set to hold insects away, made from netted linen that has been repaired usually. Sleep comes conveniently. The day's labor, quiet, however steady, has left the body fairly tired, however not exhausted. The dreams are seldom remembered. They contain fields, acquainted faces, and typical tasks. They do not disturb the sleeper. They arrive without introduction, and leave without discover. In a small shrine close the temple, a priest sleeps sitting upright in opposition to a wall. He does not lie down thoroughly, out of dependency and reverence. A small oil lamp burns beside him, its wick almost spent. He dreams of hymns, of incense smoke, and of the sacred river. However, these should not vivid visions. They are faint impressions. Half of Idias, a statue of a falcon god, watches silently from across the chamber. its eyes carved of dark stone, unblinking. The priest breathes slowly and evenly. Nothing disturbs his leisure. Again in the village, a baby turns in her sleep, murmuring once. Her mother stirs, however, does not upward thrust. She lays a hand gently on the baby's again and waits. The child grows nonetheless. The quiet resumes. In one more house, a person opens his eyes for a second, then closes them once more. He has no unique cause for waking. He does no longer seem for the moon. He does not listen for concern. He conveniently shifts and returns to sleep. Under the earth, the granaries stay undisturbed. The vessels are sealed. The grain is secure. Nobody enters them at night time. Now not due to the fact it's forbidden, but considering there is not any cause to take action. The ledgers have already been up to date. The scribe sleeps soundly in his possessed house, his reed brushes stored away in a material pouch, his ink pots sealed with clay. The pill containing the day's records lies beside his mat. He'll evaluate it in the morning. He is not troubled through the concept. Close the threshold of the village. The slim street that leads to neighboring settlements remains empty. The road is just not marked through indicators or stones, however through repetition and familiarity. During the day, traders pass along it slowly, routinely with donkeys, often with baskets balanced on their shoulders. At night, the street is unused. It grows cool, its dust settles. The trees lining its edge move most effective quite within the night wind. Above, the celebrities stay unchanged, fixed of their familiar constellations. The same patterns had been discovered for centuries. Orion, recognized in historic Egypt, as Sa watches silently over the land. The megastar Sirius, or Sopdet, has long considering the fact that risen and set. No one looks skyward tonight, however the stars stay. The universe continues its actions, silent, sluggish, and repetitive. It does not require awareness. It does not search commentary. As the deepest hours of night unfold, time appears to stretch gently. The village does not alternate. It does now, not stir. The individuals stay slumbering, their breath gentle, their ideas distant. A jar shifts reasonably within the nook of one room because the night wind flows by way of a crack. A cloth strikes slowly on a line, placing limp. A small beetle climbs the wall, then descends again. The small print are minor, the routine are few. This isn't a time of action. It is a time of stillness. The arena does no longer sleep. Totally there are continuously tiny actions, the shuffle of animals, the whisper of leaves, but it rests. The rest is just not best, however it is adequate. No fundamental changes occur. No drama unfolds. The nighttime continues in its quiet way, as it always has. And finally, faintly, far within the distance, the eastern sky begins to lighten by way of the smallest degree. The exchange is so refined that it goes not noted. The stars remain, but they appear somewhat dimmer. The air cools reasonably extra. A single poultry emits a quiet sound. Now not a crow, not a cry only, a breath of realize, and nonetheless, most continue napping. Morning will come once more. Not rapidly, no longer abruptly, but regularly, as before. However, for now, the nighttime continues. It's not over. It is not urgent. It effectively exists, slow, still, and consistent, carrying the village and its individuals gently toward the subsequent quiet day. As the nighttime recedes with quiet persistence, the first ideas of morning emerge, not as a surprising exchange, however, as a gradual shift in temperature, and in sound. The air grows subtly lighter, though the sky stays a tender gray for a while. Earlier than pale blue begins to aspect throughout the Jap horizon. The stars do not vanish all at once, but dim slowly, one after the other, fading with unhurried grace. The constellations dissolve into memory as the sun prepares to rise again, as it has performed day to day for hundreds and hundreds of years. In the village, this transition isn't marked by means of alarm or ceremony, but through a faint stirring. A mat creaks, a shallow breath becomes a deeper one. An arm stretches gently overhead. The movement is minimal and deliberate, one after the other. The inhabitants to wake, no longer from urgency, however, from rhythm. There, our bodies have learned the cues of dawn. There are no clocks, no bells, no constant schedules. The sample of sunshine is sufficient. A girl sits up slowly on her mat. She does no longer upward thrust immediately. She sits in stillness, her fingers resting in her lap. Her linen garment is rather wrinkled from the nighttime sleep. She pulls it straight. There's no hurry. Her youngsters remain asleep beside her, their respiratory even and quiet. She watches them for a moment, earlier than relocating. The ground is cool. The walls of the residence are fabricated from mud brick and remain effectively chilled earlier than the sun positive factors forestart. She pours a small amount of water right into a bowl from a ceramic jar. The water is cool, drawn from the communal good the previous day and saved overnight. She weights the material and wipes her face and arms. The gesture is familiar, now not ceremonial, no longer symbolic. It's simply part of the day's opening. In a different residence, a person repeats the identical motion. A youngster stirs and stretches, then curls up again for a number of extra moments of leisure. Outside, the first animals to stir are the chickens. They begin to cluck softly, followed soon after through the braying of a donkey. The donkey is tethered beside a storage shed, underneath a thatched roof. It stamps as soon as, then lowers its head to nuzzle the dirt. A goat shifts within a pen, nudging associate gently. Birds unseen but always present begin their morning chattering. The reeds near the canal. Their calls usually are not loud, but continuous. The scribe, a man of core years with thinning hair and constant fingers, opens his eyes slowly and sits upright. He retrieves his writing tablet and speedily stories the marks from the day earlier. Then nothing is uncertain. The entries are neat. The ink has dried totally. He eunuchs the tablet apart and gathers his brushes, stored neatly in a bundle wrapped in material. He'll start the day's record later, after the granary overseer completes. The morning relay across the village. Small fires are kindled in earthen hearths. They are not huge. The firewood is accrued sparingly, ordinarily consisting of dried stalks, small branches, and dung shaped into compact discs. A lady lovers the embers with a palm frond fan. Another provides dry twigs to an already smouldering pile. The fires are intended only for cooking. They don't have to provide warmth. The morning continues to be cool, however, no longer bloodless. The smoke rises slowly, dispersing speedily into the lightening sky. Breakfast isn't a complicated meal. A number of loaves of flatbread are warmed. A small bowl of beans is mashed and stirred. On some mornings, there's dried fish left over from the earlier day's catch. Bananas, onions are chopped and served uncooked with bread. A jug of beer is shared between adults, its taste bitter and thick, made out of fermented barley and evenly filtered. The children are given water. Everybody eats quietly, seated nearly the bottom, in general making use of the identical dish or bowl. As the meal concludes, the villagers start to arrange for his or her respective duties. The person who oversees irrigation walks slowly toward the canal. He contains a brief employees and wears a linen kilt. His work is repetitive. He'll inspect the dikes, investigate the shadoofs for proper stability, and make sure that the water channels are free of obstruction. His direction is unchanged from the day before today. He greets others alongside the way with quick nods and smooth phrases. No person speaks loudly. The potter, whose workshop lies just outside the village, appropriate, starts off of all his events with the identical consistent percent. He checks the prior day's vessels, specified by the solar to dry. Some are equipped for firing. Others have got to be moved to a shaded discipline. He wipes his fingers on a fabric and inspects each object without remark. His kill has already been ready. The first load shall be placed inside before mid-morning. The clay has been blended within the same approach for years. There is not any innovation. There is no want. Within the small temple. A junior priest opens the doorways to the interior chamber. The light has no longer yet reached the sanctuary. He walks quietly with a small oil lamp in hand. He locations choices before the statue: bread, fruit, and a small cup of beer. The god is not anticipated to consume, however the gesture ought to be performed. The act is gradual and deliberate. Each and every movement is learned by means of repetition, handed down over generations. The sanctuary remains dim. The statue does now not transfer. The priest bows, steps back, and exits without speaking. Cliffs begin to emerge from their houses. They are barefoot and raise no luggage. Most do not attend formal schooling, though a number of boys' sons of scribes or minor officials will stroll towards the condo of instruction, the place they will recite from reminiscence and apply symbols in black and red ink. Others will play in short earlier than being assigned tasks, with the aid of their father and mother gathering firewood, fetching water, chasing away birds from backyard plots. The video games are simple. The duties are familiar. There is no rebellion. There is no rush. Because the solar rises better, the air begins to heat. The light turns into enhanced, casting longer shadows. The roofs of the properties heat slowly. The streets remain in most cases empty. Retailer for quiet figures jogging with intent, however, without haste. No carts rumble through. No bulletins are made. The sounds are delicate footsteps. Birds, the occasional creak of a door or whisper of a broom across packed earth. But with the aid of mid-morning, the rhythm of the day is thoroughly centered. The individuals are working, but not straining. The routines are steady, no longer rushed. The percent is gradual, not lazy. There is a great deal to do, but nothing is sudden. The duties had been performed for years. They will be performed once more the next day to come. There is remedy on this predictability. The day unfolds without shock. The persons move in quiet harmony with the sun, with the river, and with one another. The rhythms of the morning should not design for excitement. They are not intended for spectacle. They are with no trouble lived, repeated without end across years and generations. Nothing amazing has happened, and that, for most, is precisely what's hoped for. As the sun continues its measured ascent, the morning step by step yields to midday. This change, like so many others in old Egypt, occurs without suddenness or drama. The transition is marked not through noise or clamor, but by means of a nearly imperceptible shift within the weight of the air, within the length of the shadows, and within the percent of human recreation. The brightness of the sky intensifies gently. The breeze, which had stirred faintly at daybreak, now rests. Having completed its early morning obligations, the surfaces of walls and rooftops begin to mirror extra warmness than they did just hours before. The packed earth underneath the feet of the villagers warms slowly, and its heat, as soon as comforting, begins to say itself extra insistently. The villagers aren't amazed by means of this development. They've felt it day-to-day of their lives. There is no have-got to remark on it. There is not any reason to note it aloud. It is with ease the best way of matters. Labor continues, but its tempo has subtly shifted. Actions are less common, more deliberate, and typically implemented beneath the safeguard of coloration. Within the gardens along the irrigation ditches, workers are likely to the young papyrus stalks, crouched low to the bottom, moving with a rhythm born of lengthy dependency. They do not rise almost always. They do not transfer swiftly. When they communicate, their voices are low, barely above a whisper, and rare. The irrigation overseer walks alongside the canal's part with the identical calm authority he exhibited at dawn. He uses his employees to measure the water's depth at particular intervals. His sandals are dusted with the exceptional grey soil of the embankment. His linen kilt now clings slightly to his dermis, darkened by means of perspiration. He pauses often no longer from fatigue, however, from habit. He examines the water float and considers which plots require roughly diversion. The choices are hardly ever intricate. They comply with patterns. The same questions are answered in a lot the same way every day. Beside the grain storehouse, the scribe has taken up his place once more. He sits gow-legged in the color of a mud brick wall, his writing board balanced on his knees, his reed brush in hand. The papyrus scrolls beside him are stored wrapped in fabric to guard them from dirt. He writes slowly, without flourish. The symbols are neat but utilitarian. He files the number of sacks moved inside and outside, the names of the employees who acquired them, and the approximate weight of each and every load. The ink is thick, constructed from soot and water. The entries are brief, not often various words. He pauses normally, but no longer from confusion. The scribe is cautious, and carefulness is slow. The potter, external the village, works at his wheel, turning it by foot. The clay he shapes is pliable, drawn earlier in the morning from a pit, softened by way of canal water. Every vessel he forms resembles the one earlier than it. The form is steady, dictated by way of use. There are no decorative prospers. These are storage jars, meant for grain or oil. The procedure is methodical. The wheel spins with a gentle rhythm, and his hands consultant the form into form with minimal stress. As soon as the vessel is formed, he sets it aside to dry within the solar, turning it from time to time. He does not appear up on the whole. The children are ordinarily indoors now, lying on mats or sitting close, the partitions where the color is deepest. Their video games have ended for the time being. Their laughter, so tender to wit, has subsided. Some nap, others speak to at least one more, in quiet tones, sharing small stories or imagined plans. A couple have been dispatched to hold messages between residences or to deliver water from the good. However, even these errands are infrequent during the heat of the day. The adults comprehend the limits of persistence. Tasks can wait, except the sun begins its slow descent. Within the temple courtyard, the junior priest fans incense towards the sanctuary entrance. The scent is faint, a combination of resin and beaten petals. He sweeps the ground with a reed broom, gathering dirt that drifts down from the exposed roof beams. A small cat watches him from the shadow of a column. The priest does now not try to chase it away. The cat has been rewarded for a lot of days. It seems to recognize the quiet of the temple. It does now not meow. It does now not move swiftly. It watches in that is adequate. A younger boy in the apartment of guide practices. He's writing with a charcoal stick on a fraction of pottery. He writes the equal word again and again, whenever, reasonably smaller, fairly straighter. His teacher, a thin man with sun-lined cheeks, watches in silence. Once in a while he nods, delivering not more than a faint sound of acknowledgement. When the boy finishes the road, he starts affevelled again. There is not any haste. There's no punishment. Follow is enough. The midday meal is mild and uneventful. Bread is eaten once more, along with dates or radishes if they are on hand. A jug of beer is handed round slowly. There is little dialogue. Most take a seat within the coloration of doorways, some with their backs resting towards the cool inner partitions of the house. They chunk slowly, drink in small sips, and stay nonetheless between bites. A person enthusiasts himself with a woven palm leaf fan. A lady rolls her shoulders gently to stretch muscle groups already starting to tighten from crouching and carrying. There is no urgency. External the village, along the threshold of a small area, a gaggle of workers move soil with curved wooden hoes. Their growth is sluggish and coordinated. Each and every man knows when to raise, when to press, when to rest. They take turns without phrases. A boy stands local with a jar of water. He presents it from time to time. They drink without stopping to communicate. The sweat on their brows glistens in the sun. However, they do not whinge. The discipline have to be leveled earlier than the following watering. It'll be performed, finally, because the afternoon progresses. The heat reaches its peak, after which begins, just about imperceptibly, to decline. There is not any announcement. The air starts offevelt to move again, just slightly. A shadow that had been narrow now starts to extend. A bird that had remained silent now chirps as soon as and hops alongside a rooftop. These are the small alerts through which the villagers comprehend that the worst of the heat is passing. However, still, they don't rush. The donkey tied closed the grainhouse, swishes its tail slowly. It has no longer been moved, considering the fact that morning. It shifts its weight from 1 foot to an additional. A neighborhood worker examines its rope, however, says nothing. The animal is nice. It has food and water. Its tasks will resume when the solar is curb. For now, stillness is desired. During the village, the tone of labor remains regular. There is work, but there's no commotion. There is motion, however, it's gradual and predictable. The rhythm of the day just isn't dictated through bells or instructions. However, through the sun and the soil, the warmth and the coloration, men and women do what they ought to, however no longer greater than they must. Every motion is measured. Every resolution is acquainted. The lifetime of the village, at midday, is not marked by way of dramatic activities or pressing tendencies. Rather, it's a time of continuation. The same duties are repeated. The identical instruments are used. The equal gestures are made. The same thoughts pass quietly through the minds of those who have lived at the moment earlier than and can live. It once more, it is this sameness that brings remedy. It is this repetition that brings peace. And as the solar starts to descend all over again, the village prepares now not for anything new, but for extra of the identical. As the noon sun starts effervelved, its gradual, deliberate descent beyond the roof lines and reed-fringed partitions of the historic Egyptian village, the depth of the warmth starts offevelt to recede. This shift does no longer occur immediately. It's a gradual unfolding, just like the unfurling of a tightly rolled papyrus scroll. Predictable, and familiar. The heavy stillness that dominated the hours of finest brightness gives approach to a gentler air. The silence is not damaged so much as fairly softened through faint, renewed recreation. Within the small mud brick properties, the shaded interiors remain cool for a time. The walls, made of solar-dried clay and straw, unencumbered, they're absorbed warmth slowly, maintaining a steadiness between comfort and warmness. Families stir from their resting locations. There's no unexpected noise, no abrupt upward thrust in recreation. Individuals sit up slowly. Conversations resume, quietly and without excitement. There are no declarations. There are not any disputes. With these quiet murmurs, as neighbors inquire about tasks yet unfinished, about instruments but to be used, about water jars but to be filled, the village paths, lined with small stones and compressed earth, start to show signs of lifestyles. Once more, a pair of older guys walk slowly, their staffs tapping the ground in a well-known rhythm, no longer out of necessity, however more from pursuits. They don't walk far. Their conversation shouldn't be urgent. They comment on the dryness of the season, on the evenness of the canal's waft, on the pattern of clouds which have not introduced rain in months. These observations are not complaints. They are comfortably matters that are true, external, near the brink of a shared courtyard. A woman starts off a valve to grind barley, as soon as once more utilizing a massive flat stone and a smaller one, shaped to her arms. The sound of stone towards grain is soft, repetitive, and standard. The movement requires no proposal. It is executed, as it has constantly been executed, handed down by means of generations of hands that have pressed and circled, and pressed once more. There is no intention of finishing swiftly. There is not any need. The day is lengthy, ample. Youngsters reappear, drawn external, not by using guide, however, via the lessening warmth. Their movements are cautious in the beginning, quiet steps, sluggish procedures to one an extra, glances exchanged in silence. Their games are resumed in muted tones. Pebbles are arranged in traces. Small sticks are used to attract figures within the dirt. Some chase shadows alongside partitions. Laughter, when it comes, is tender. There are no outbursts. There are not any shouts. The return of undertaking is regular, not unexpected. Within the small administrative chamber, simply beside the temple's outer wall, a low-rating scribe starts his 2D shift. His duties have been paused during the peak of the sun. However, now the work have got to be persisted. He carefully unrolls a scroll of taxes owed by using regional farmers. He references this list with names recorded prior within the month. The ink on the papyrus has light-best somewhat. Each entry is reviewed slowly, no longer considering the fact that there is confusion. However, due to the fact that there may be time, accuracy is not hurried. Efficiency is measured, not by speed, however, through steadiness. The headman of the village emerges from his shaded residence. He adjusts the folds of his linen kilt, smoothed for the period of his leisure. He walks toward the threshold of the grain retailer, where he observes the workers commencing to come back. He does not name out to them. He does not wave. They see him. They recognize their duties. He nods as soon as that's ample. A tally pill is retrieved. A count starts once more. In a slim alley between two residences, a boy feeds chopped straw to a goat tethered to a put-up. The goat chews slowly. Its ears flick on occasion at insects. The boy strokes its aspect absent-mindedly, his other hand protecting a small cup of water, offering it at intervals. This small obligation just isn't assigned to him formally. It is quite simply achieved, as he noticed it achieved, via his brother, the year earlier then, and by his father when he was once young. The rhythm of animal care suits easily into the higher sample of the day. Clothes, the field, the place. Irrigation ditches divide the soil into carefully managed plots. Employees slowly resume turning the soil and adjusting the float of water. A gate, made of bundled reeds, is lifted. Water rushes in gently, not with force but with a consistent presence. The sound of trickling is delicate. A worker makes use of his foot to redirect the circulation, pressing the moist earth right into a small ridge. No voices are raised. No disputes arise. The water goes where it is meant to move. Women collect at the communal oven, a simple dome-shaped structure of clay. The fireplace inside is tended slowly, with branches fed in small amounts. The baking of bread resumes no longer for the midday meal, which is already handed, however, for the night and for the next morning. Dough, prepared previous, is formed and flattened. The bread is inconspicuous and flat, marked with strains. For effortless breaking, the scent is moderate, earthy. The ladies do not converse so much. Once they do, It is about portions, about whether the flour was once coarse, about how the dough rose. Their exchanges are quick, practical, and low in tone. The temple servants return to their tasks as well. A small brazier is lit in a quiet corner. It's not for warmness, however, for incense. A junior priest stirs the embers with a stick. Resin is brought in pinches. Smoke rises in skinny lines, disappearing slowly into the excessive ceiling. Offerings are inspected: fruit, bread, vegetation. Each object is noted and placed. Consequently, there is no spectacle. There is not any drama. The gods do not require noise, because the afternoon deepens. A delicate coolness enters the air. It isn't yet evening, however it's no longer the fullness of day. The transition is sluggish, like each other part of village existence. The trade in temperature is felt first within the shaded corners. The place shadows deepen rather, then within, the breeze that passes over the open well. Then in the distant sound of birds returning to their bushes. These small indicators are ample. Inside one of the vital greater houses, a grandmother begins to tell a narrative to a small staff of kids seated around her. Her voice is smooth, regular, and without expression. The story is one they have heard. Earlier then, a few crocodile and a fisherman. She does no longer beautify it. She does not act it out. She with ease tells it, because it was once informed to her, with lengthy pauses and sluggish transitions. The youngsters hear, now not with excitement, however with familiarity. The story is a component of the day. The pottery vessels set out prior to dry have hardened fairly in the sun. The potter walks among them now, tapping each and every one lightly with a finger. He listens for the sound, a hollow tone that tells him it's in a position to move. He picks them up one after the other, carefully and methodically, stacking them in a shaded area. None are damaged, none are great, all are enough. He wipes his fingers on a cloth and sits down for a second. There's still time in the day, but he does no longer rush to again. Across the village, the percent of existence has resumed, but it has no longer accelerated. It remains slow, even, and predictable. The individuals of the village do not measure their day in hours or minutes. They measure it in heat, in mild, within the softness of shadows, and in the repetition of duties. Because the sun tilts downward and the air continues to cool, they recognize that night is approaching. However, they don't hurry towards it. They let it come as it's going to, and in this quiet return to motion, there may be remedy. There is not any want for haste. The day is lengthy. The work is familiar. The village continues, because it has at all times continued, slowly, gently, and without interruption. As the sun continues its gradual course towards the horizon, the village starts its gradual instruction for the close of day. The light softens, shedding some of its prior brightness but final heat and diffuse, casting smooth colorings over the mud brick, partitions and reed-thatched roofs. This slow fading of sunshine is neither unexpected nor marked with the aid of fanfare. It's without problems the natural conclusion of the day's cycle, repeated without end, with a quiet regularity. Within the houses, movements grow increasingly deliberate and measured. The morning's and afternoon's work is now completed or paused. Instruments are gathered and put aside, laid carefully upon low shelves or hung from easy hooks normal from timber or bone. The dust and earth of the day settle slowly on floors and fixtures alike. The inhabitants breathe just a little less difficult. No longer from remedy, however, from the smooth easing of labor's demands. In a single household, a lady begins to prepare the evening meal. The procedure is methodical. A small fire is rekindled. Inside the earthen fireside, where embers from previous are revived, with the gentle addition of dry twigs and small branches. The flame is unassuming, managed, producing just sufficient warmth for cooking. A clay pot full of water is positioned above it, supposed for softening grains or cooking lentils. The stirring of the contents is consistent and slow, carried out with a wooden spoon worn tender from used neighborhood. A person arranges pieces of flatbread on a mat. The loaves are firm and quite rough, baked prior within the day and now set, to be eaten once more. A dish of garlic paste, constructed from mashed cloves, mixed with a contact of oil and salt, is portioned cautiously. The flavors are acquainted and consistent. There is not any want for variety or extravagance. The meal is sufficient, nourishing, and pursuits. The kids collect quietly around their parents, some sitting, others reclining on mats. They devour slowly, utilizing their fingers to break bread and scoop lentils. The air is cool but nonetheless consists of the faint scent of earth and river. No person speaks loudly. Conversations, when they occur, are subdued and practical, touching briefly on the day's simple hobbies, whether the granary shops had been ample, or if the irrigation channels required preservation, or if a neighbor's livestock appeared well. External. The guys who have been working in the fields start to come to the village, their footsteps sluggish and constant on the dust-included paths. Some lift small baskets full of gathered produce, onions, radishes, or datesall. Though these are modest quantities, their clothes undergo the marks of labor, patches of dried mud, faint traces of sweat, and the soft wrinkles of worn linen. They do not rush to their homes. Instead, they transfer deliberately, permitting their bodies to chill naturally. The donkey and goats are led back to their enclosures or tethered close to the houses. Their actions are calm. They don't resist or stress. A boy includes a small water jar to a tethered goat, refilling its trough with cautious hands. The animals reply with gentle murmurs and sluggish chewing. Their presence is regular and unchanging. In the temple courtyard, the junior monks once again participate in their quiet rituals. The lighting of oil lamps is finished with practiced care. The gentle flicker of flames casts sluggish, relocating shadows on carved stone walls. Incense is burned in small portions, its scent faint and unintrusive. The choices are changed or replenished. Small portions of bread, a couple of dates, a cup of beer. The statues remain silent and still, untouched via time. The priest's movements are gradual, their moves certain and deliberate. They do not converse aloud. There is no urgency. A scribe on the village administration hut closes his ledger for the day. He wipes his brushes clean with a moist fabric, rolls up his papyrus scrolls, and stores them cautiously in a wood field. The fading daytime is enough to indicate the top of his tasks. He stands slowly, stretches his fingers, and steps outside to breathe the cooling air. His footsteps are tender on the packed earth as he heads house. Close the communal oven. The final batches of bread are removed and placed upon mats to cool. Females wrap some in material for storage. At the same time, others set portions aside for immediate consumption. The aroma of baked grain lingers frivolously within the air, mingling with the earth and river scents. There's no hurry. The bread will final via the night and into the next day. The village itself seems to take a deep, sluggish breath. The quantity of exercise diminishes. The percent of motions slackens. Conversations are fewer and softer. The animals settle into their places. The firewood is gathered and stacked, and doors are secured with easy latches or tied flaps of fabric. A single canine, earlier silent for the period of the day, emits a low, rolling growl at sound. No one responds. The sound fades into the general quiet. Night has no longer but wholly arrived. However, it is drawing near with smooth certainty. The river, ever steady, displays the muted colors of the sky. Its floor remains to be, except for the occasional ripple triggered by way of a fish or the wind. The reeds lining its banks sway softly, their actions sluggish and rhythmic. In the houses, mats are laid out for sleep. Pillows carved of timber are put on the head of each and every resting place. Blankets made out of woven flax are folded regional. The household participants start to settle down, their bodies easing into relaxation with the ease born of events and repetition. The lamps are lit in corners and niches, their small flames flickering softly. They provide just adequate light to navigate the rooms, however now not adequate to disturb the settling darkness. The shadows they cast are long and quiet, relocating gently because the sparkle seize on uneven walls. Step by step, the village falls into a peaceful that is neither whole silence nor stressed stillness, however a balanced quietude. The sounds that remain, the occasional moving of a limb, the breath of a sleeper, the distant name of a night fowl blend into the gentle rhythm of nighttime. And so the day closes because it started. Now not with surprising change but with a sluggish, regular development, a measured unfolding from light to dark, from endeavor to relaxation, from wakefulness to sleep. Because the night deepens over the Nile Valley, the village rests in quiet stillness. The last sparkles of oil lamps have paled, leaving the small homes wrapped in shadows and silence. The air is cooler now, carrying faint scents of river mud and dried papyrus, gentle reminders of the panorama's steady presence. The persons lie immobile, their respiratory sluggish, and even there, our bodies cradled via simple mats woven from flax or reeds. Outside, the celebs punctuate the darkish sky in constant patterns, identified on account that time immemorial. Their constellations, unchanged for countless generations, form a silent canopy over the land. The pleasant river continues its ceaseless waft, its waters reflecting nothing, however, the faint gentle of the heavens, and the occasional shimmer of nocturnal creatures. The night, in all its calmness, appears to maintain the village in a tender include. During the hours of darkness, the village remains largely unchanged. No surprising sounds disrupt the restfulness. No hurried movements disturb the calm. The occasional breath of wind stirs a reed or shifts a bit of material hanging at a doorway, and a far-off owl calls softly. Such minor motions are the one departures from the pervasive stillness. Inside each residence, the routines of the day have been laid aside, their marks faintly obvious but now not pressing. Tools rest in acquainted places. Stored grain lies cozy in sealed jars, the records of scribes' leisure on tablet or scroll, waiting patiently for the morning's awareness. The hearths, now cool, keep the faintest traces of previous fires. The animals sleep, their forms softened by darkness and absence of exercise. Time itself seems to pause, but it does now not stop. It strikes gently ahead, measured no longer in moments, however, in cycles. The upward push and fall of the sun, the slow turning of seasons, the unending return of familiar patterns. The people of the village live inside this flow, their days formed via repetition and quiet expectation. There's no need for hurry or change. The fidelity itself is the comfort. The reminiscence of the day lingers faintly in the air, the tender grinding of grain, the consistent flow of irrigation water, the measured footsteps along well-worn paths. The low voices speak him of every day issues. Each sound, every action, types a part of a continuous rhythm that hyperlinks past, present, and future. This rhythm is neither hurried nor interrupted. It's sluggish, consistent, and dependable. As the nighttime advances towards its deepest hours, the land appears to breathe in stillness, drawing in the calm earlier than the daybreak. Although darkness envelops the village, it additionally guarantees renewal. The sun will upward thrust once more, because it always has, bringing light and heat, work and rest, existence carrying on within gentle cycles. In this consistent development, there may be peace, there's quietude, there is the reassurance that what has been accomplished will probably be completed again, and what has been lived might be lived another time. The small details, the folding of cloth, the smoothing of clay, the careful tally of grain stay, repeated forever without alternate or interruption. And so, in the hush of night, the village rests. The cycle of days turns slowly and softly, the patterns of life weaving a quiet tapestry of continuity. The historic world does not rush, it does not demand. It with ease unfolds, just like the sluggish, even turning of a page, inviting calm, stillness, and relaxation.